Hello everybody, today I have another video for you all. Hooray! And this is part 2 of my 5-part series on my 200 subscriber special. I genuinely did not mean for part 2 to come so long after the first part. I was working on these guys for the next video, and it just took me forever to do. So for my second video, I thought I could re-showcase some of my first characters I've ever shown off on the channel, being Stunticons. Right off the bat, one thing I didn't do in the original video was show them all off together like this, like a team. I kind of showed them off separately, and the only time you got to see them together was when I was putting them together. So, yeah. And also, unlike my original video, I'm doing this in one part, so it may be longer, maybe shorter, I don't know. So, going in the order that I showed them in my original video, first we're starting with Motormaster. Before I start talking about these guys, I feel like I should give a bit of a backstory on why these guys exist. Some of my favorite characters in the Transformers series have to be the Stunticons, which is a team of Decepticons that consists of Motormaster, Dragstrip, Dead End, Breakdown, and Wild Rider. They're a team of Decepticons that form mostly cars and vehicles, but unfortunately they never made it into the live-action movies. And I really love the live-action movies despite what a lot of people say about them. And in my opinion, I almost prefer the live-action movies over the original cartoon because of the excessive amount of action. One thing I'm not a big fan of the movies, though, is the kind of inconsistency errors and kind of almost laziness put into it and more care put into action than actual story writing. So I kind of designed these characters based off the story and whole concept of the live-action Michael Bay movies, and a lot of their personalities and designs are based off stuff from the movies. And I'll get into a little more on where they kind of take place in the movies and like how they tie into it and all the lore and stuff behind them. Now, Motormaster was actually the first one I designed out of all of them, and when I first designed him, I wasn't really planning to turn him into Motormaster. I kind of designed him as almost an original character of sorts, but eventually I just decided to give him the name Motormaster and develop him into what he is today. And this is the third version of him that I've shown off in all my videos. He is the most advanced and kind of the final state that I plan to leave him in. I might upgrade him if I ever get more parts because there are a lot of old, kind of weak and almost broken parts. So I might replace a lot of them whenever they get broken. But anyways, now that you're caught up to speed, I know that I said there wasn't going to be as much rambling. But now let's actually get into the actual figure itself. So with Motormaster, I took a lot of elements from the live action movies and kind of had like the very panely, rigid, sharp aesthetic and the kind of excessive amount of panels and armor and bulkiness that the characters have, and almost like lack of actual skeleton inside. Like, as you can see, like he's almost completely hollow to some degree, which is kind of accurate to how the movies are. They are kind of like thin pieces of metal held together by sheer will in the movies, and whenever they get blown up, they kind of just like flake into dust. So, and I feel like a lot of the Bionicle pieces that Lego makes did kind of capture that art style very well, especially these pieces on the back of the legs. They look very kind of sharp and Bayverse-esque. And for his face, I used this skull mask. I thought it was a very cool mask that I had. I only had a couple of the Bionicle masks because when I started collecting Bionicle, they started doing those Star Wars Bionicle figures, and they kind of stopped doing the actual Bionicle, so I only had a couple of these, and this was one of them. I don't think this was an actual specific character. I think this was just like a faceless, kind of just mask character. But I feel like it kind of fit the whole almost evil king, Motormaster-esque feel that I was going for. And like I was saying earlier, it does kind of fit that whole Bayverse look, and looks pretty cool. And as you can see, kind of looking up a little bit, I gave him these tall shoulder tower pieces, which kind of are a little reminiscent of what Menasaure's shoulder towers look like in the cartoon. As you can see from my original design, I left the flag on there. I remember in my original video, this was the most annoying part about Motormaster because it kept falling off and flopping about. I did kind of secure it a little more sturdily. And on the back, you can see this giant backpack. This becomes the head of the combiner later. And down on his legs, you can see these massive tires, which kind of hint at his vehicle mode. And you can see these are the combine ports. It's no longer just a socket joint for a Bionicle. It's now a kind of clip piece which will connect to the leg. He's got these big, flat, strong, sturdy feet to hold up his big, heavy body. And I kind of kept these weird kind of vent-looking things on his shoulders. It bulked him up and kind of made him look a little less kind of flimsy looking. He's still got his classic gun that I gave him in the original video. This is actually based off some of the guns you see in the live-action movies. And yeah, it's pretty much all I have to say. Nothing too much new about him. The only differences are like the kind of updated legs and the kind of just replacement of parts. Everything else is kind of exclusive to the combined mode, but I'll show that off later. But before, I just want to show off his vehicle mode. Now for Motormaster's vehicle mode, I decided to go for Gravedigger. This is still the same Gravedigger that I used in my original video. And yes, I still have to swap out the back tires and the flag whenever I want to transform him. That's not really important. I don't really know where I got the idea to make his alt mode Gravedigger. It's probably mainly just because I had all the kind of black and green parts, which kind of reminded me of Gravedigger. And also just because I feel like we get too many expensive model cars in the live action movies, and I feel like it would be cooler to see like actual almost celebrity type vehicles. Gravedigger being a very popular monster truck, probably one of the most recognizable monster trucks there is, and it's kind of one of my favorite monster trucks. I don't know much about monster trucks or anything. I don't really watch any shows or stuff or anything related to them, but from the ones I've seen, Gravedigger is by far my favorite. And I just felt like it was kind of a good fit for someone named Motormaster to become like one of the most iconic monster trucks ever. Yeah, I do actually really like this set. It's kind of dusty because it's been sitting on my shelf of Legos for ever now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All I have to say. There's nothing too fancy about it. The next character we have is Dead End, and unlike Motormaster, where he was like a completely original design for the character, Dead End is based off a character. Now the character being Sideways. He's kind of like a side character that you see for a couple seconds before getting immediately killed off. And he really only existed as a sponsor for the movie before the sponsor kind of was dropped, so they killed him off immediately, so they wouldn't have to worry about the car appearing in the movie. He's the guy who kind of gets split in half by Sideswipe at the beginning of the second movie. And so in the third movie, he reappears in the background and he gets like quickly killed off. And I've heard people say that was kind of supposed to be... I've heard people name that kind of recolor of Sideways Dead End. So I decided to just use Sideways design as kind of just a reference. I didn't go for the full design, but like kind of like just to kind of vaguely resemble it. As you can see, it's not perfect, but it's kind of there. So anyways, getting back to Dead End, as you can see, he's got very long, thin legs and a very short, stocky body. And It is kind of weird looking at it from most angles because like he has no body. It kind of just goes from legs to arms and head. But if you look at it, you can see he does have a little bit of a body down there. It's just from most angles you can't really see it. He's kind of awkwardly proportioned. Maybe I could try. The reason why he's kind of got an awkward posture is because the way I designed his head, it kind of sticks upward and out. So you have to kind of position him like this so his head stays like this. Now he looks good from like a front angle, like you can't tell what you're looking at, but from like a side and back angle, like it's kind of weird. I use like a Bionicle foot for his face, and when I first designed it, I thought it was like an ingenious design, but the more I look at it, the kind of less I like it. But I want to keep it because like not only have I kept his face like this for the longest time, but I think this is the closest I'm going to get at this scale. Also, another thing you might notice is that when I originally designed the character, I had like a little black patch around this eye. And I kind of said that it was supposed to be like some sort of like tattoo or some sort of like battle damage or scar or something. Or dirt or something. And the main reason why I did that is because I didn't have enough pieces in this color to make it all gray. But now, as you can see, I kind of mustered up the courage to just do it all. For the longest time, I intentionally just kept it kind of mix match colors because that was kind of my original design of him. But now I decided to go against that and make his head symmetrical now, so it's a little less unique, but I do kind of prefer it this way. One thing that I did decide to keep was this kind of like little accessory that I made where like the back tire, as you can see, has this little extension, which is supposed to be like a hand-mounted gun, which you just equipped him with just removing his hand and replacing his hand with the gun. So now he's got this kind of hand-mounted gun, and you can place the hand like so. It looks pretty cool, and I don't remember Sideways ever having a gun like this. I'm pretty sure this was my original design. I honestly don't remember, but it does look pretty cool, and from some angles it does look like he's holding a gun, but like it's covered by the wheel. But it is coming out of his hand. And you are capable of putting it to the other side. You just have to switch the side that it's completely symmetrical both ways. It's just this tire, you have to put it on the other side. But yeah, there's not too much to say about him. You can see the giant combine port on his back, which in my first design, it stuck way out. So like in combine mode, he's stuck far out, but I managed to find this better way. So he kind of sits upright in combine mode, so it looks a little better. Now for Dead End's vehicle mode, I made it this kind of little Jeep, kind of Grand Cherokee Jeep looking car. Jeep. It's based off like a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Kind of the main reason why I based it off that is because like it's one of the most commonly seen types of Jeeps on the road. Mainly like the off-white pearl colored ones. I see those everywhere. Pearl colored Grand Cherokees are just everywhere. I don't know why or who made so many, but they're just everywhere. So I decided to just go with kind of a Jeep Grand Cherokee because I feel like it would be an appropriate vehicle for a Transformer to choose to blend in, especially because they're everywhere. And I like to imagine this is kind of like a banged up old kind of junk car. Like it really doesn't run very well. And as you can see, I put some like kind of suspension on. Not actual suspension, but like I raised the back wheel a little bit. Just so you could fit the little peg in the back. I gave the Jeep this little trailer, and it's mainly just to bulk out the vehicle mode because in comparison to the actual figure, like the size, like there's a very large size difference. So it wouldn't really work out very well at a car this size. And actually, in my opinion, I kind of wish LEGO made more like licensed, just generic commercial vehicles like this, because really the only types of cars they make are like fancy sports cars, stuff like this. They don't make like any normal Jeeps or anything at minifigure scale. By the way, this is a custom make. This isn't an actual LEGO set. I built this on my own. Next character we have is Breakdown, and he's a pretty neat design. Again, he's not really, this character in particular is not really based off of anything, and is another one of my original designs, unlike Dead End. And he he's a pretty unique design. One thing that I said in my original video is that I was a really big fan. Like, he was my favorite character that I made because he looks so goofy. That's kind of really the only reason why I actually genuinely loved him, because his face looked goofy, and I did kind of like tone down the kind of shocked, wild expression, kind of made it look a little less exaggerated just by moving a couple pieces around. I did kind of bulk out his face, make it look almost more Bayverse. And that was kind of the main reason why I loved it, because it looked angular and very reminiscent to like certain Bayverse characters like Frenzy. So Breakdown is actually just a carbon copy of Dead End. And besides like their legs and kind of upper body, everything else is kind of the same. Like, their arms are very similar in design, and their chests, the way they connect, are very similar in design. And I do kind of prefer Breakdown's design more than Dead End, even though they're the same. Mainly just because Breakdown, he's a lot simpler than Dead End and has a lot less joints to worry about, so it's a lot easier to pose him. Because what I've learned, that characters with more joints are harder to pose and make him look more natural, because you have to worry about so many little moving parts. And he's kind of like the least changed out of all of them. One thing I did change was that these two little pieces that originally stuck out like really far, I squished them in. And the biggest detail I did was actually I incorporated his face into the almost scarred, like, kind of half blue, almost transparent part of him. I kind of incorporated his face into that too, because originally his face was symmetrical. And I kind of felt like the whole scarred look of him was kind of being lost because his face wasn't really connected to it. So what I did, I added some transparent blue pieces in there just to spice it up a little bit and make it look a little nicer. And in my opinion, I do much prefer it. And again, the face with Breakdown being kind of like the cowardly, weak one of the team, I feel like that face does kind of capture what I was going for a lot. Now for his vehicle mode, I still have it as the same kind of Ford sports car. I still know nothing about this car, and a matter of fact, if anything, I know less about it since my original video on them. I feel like if Breakdown was in the movies, he would just be one of those characters who just turns into an expensive car just so the movies can just make money off of the expensive car being in the movie. Basically just free sponsorship. And yeah, that's basically what I was trying to do with this car. Just be like, this is kind of just a lazy attempt to make money, and it only really exists for the purpose of money. So yeah, I don't really have much to say about this. I do like the colors, which is why I decided to choose it. And Breakdown, when I first designed him, he actually wasn't colored like this. And I actually added all those pieces on later. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it. The next character we have is Dragstrip, and in my opinion, he's actually grown to be one of my more favorite out of the custom movie Stunticon designs that I made. Mainly just because Dragstrip is my favorite character out of the Stunticons, and I heavily modified him since my original video on them to be a little more reminiscent of his original design, and also just to look a lot more Bayverse and cool. As you can see, one thing I did was I added a bunch of this stuff, like a whole bunch of stuff around his head to just bulk it up a little bit, and also added a lot more car parts, just kind of sprinkled throughout to make it feel a lot more like he turns into a car. I haven't changed much about him since my kind of Bruticus and Combaticons videos, except for this massive kind of combine port on his back. Now, when I originally made these guys, a big problem about them was their structural integrity wasn't the best. So when I redesigned them more recently, I made them a lot more structurally sound and added this giant combiner knee. This becomes the knee and lower leg, or upper part of the upper leg of Bruticus. Now the catch with this is that the Dragstrip's robot mode does suffer a little bit, and in my opinion I feel like it's not too bad and it's not too grossly obvious from most points, or from most angles, and I feel like if you really didn't like it, you could just remove it. One thing I wish I did was make him yellow, because his original design, he was a sand color, which is supposed to represent like his yellow color. And Dragstrip's my favorite character in the Stunticons because his like kind of bright yellow and almost sore thumb stand out from the rest of them, because he was an F1 race car with 6 wheels, and he was also bright yellow, so he didn't really fit in with the rest of them, and so he stood out. This guy, he kind of blends in quite a bit because he's just gray and black like all the other guys. Kind of wish I tried to find like a better color, more unique color, but I didn't really have anything else, and this is all I was working with. So for Dragstrip's vehicle mode, I took an existing Lego F1 race car set, and I souped it up. So this was an existing Lego set, and what I did, I got 2 of the set, and then I upgraded the car to be more reminiscent of Dragstrip. So some of the things I did is that I made the rear fender, no, not fender, spoiler, a lot bigger. I put spikes on the front and kind of made it look a little more scary. And obviously the biggest detail has to be the extra set of wheels that gives them the proper 6th wheel iconic Dragstrip look that is really necessary if you're going to be making a Dragstrip. This is actually something that does happen a lot in the live action movies. An example would probably have to be Bone Crusher. His vehicle mode, it was kind of like this armored like military type vehicle with like this weird like scoop claw thing on it. And I don't really remember what it was used for, like in actual practical use in real life, but it was like this tiny little rake thing, and it wasn't really that impressive. And so what Michael Bay did for the movie was that he had it customized and made a clip that was like 3 times the size of the original kind of rake type device, and attached it, and so it gave it the kind of cool scary looking claw that it has in the movie. And so that's why I kind of made this and didn't really worry about accuracy to real life, because that is something that happens in the movies. And kind of, if you think about it, like obviously a Transformer could possibly, modify their vehicle mode to be how they fit, because it happens kind of a lot. Because Optimus Prime scans like a blank white truck and then turns into like this really cool flaming truck. And the final and the biggest character I have to show off is Wild Rider. Now, Wild Rider is probably the most changed out of the 5. And I was never really happy with his design. I never really got around to properly fixing it to how I wanted it to be. But now I finally got it to a place that I'm happy with. And yeah, I'm much more proud of the new design. I feel like the original one was way too messy. It just had too many different colors going on. And so with this one, I did simplify it a little bit, but also add a little more pieces so it didn't just look like a weird skinny skeleton running around. And so one of the most annoying things about his original design was that his claw design, like I put fingers and little pieces and stuff to represent fingers on the kind of gun piece, but it didn't really work very well, and they just kept falling off, so I had to fix that and just make it a little more of a simple looking gun. And also another thing is that the treads that become like part of his tank mode and vehicle mode, they kind of just like, I just had like a bunch of them kind of connect to his arm, and they kind of just dangled, and they got in the way a lot and just looked bad. So instead what I did, I kind of took little pieces of them and put on his shoulders to kind of represent like kind of shoulder pads or some sort of And as you see, I have this extra little joint in the middle to kind of just almost show off that like the treads kind of come a part of him. And I would also like to think that this kind of almost leathery design on here is supposed to represent more treads that kind of turn into like body armor almost. I also changed his kind of torso a bit because originally it kind of looked like he had like some sort of pot belly. It didn't really look very good, so I kind of slimmed him down a little bit and made him look a little more not pot belly looking. And I kind of made him a little more symmetrical, and while I did kind of keep a little bit of that like asymmetrical design, I did kind of simplify it a little bit and make it look nicer. His other arm is still like this kind of arm mounted cannon, although I did kind of attach it a little better because originally it kind of just pegged here and it didn't look very good because it kind of just stuck out. But now like it's actually his arm and it looks a lot nicer. Down on his legs, he has these kind of large claw feet. His legs are very slim and slender, but I'm okay with it that way. It is kind of necessary for his combined mode because he has to be kind of skinny in order to fold up into a brick to become the legs. As you can see, I still use feet, like little extra like shoe pieces on the legs to bulk them up. I kind of changed the placement of them so it feels more like bags or pockets on him. One of the biggest changes I did to him was I changed his face completely. Originally, his face was almost completely exposed and it didn't look the best. It kind of just looked weird looking. I really don't know how to explain it, but I wasn't very proud of it. And so what I did, I modified it and made it look more like he's wearing like a mask or like cage or helmet around his face. You can still see his eyes underneath a little bit, but they're covered up by this kind of goggle like visor thing, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, I changed his mask a little bit to look more like some sort of armored gas mask almost. And I also kept the shoulder, the kind of shoulder missile launcher, which originally it didn't really click on very well and it kind of just sat on his shoulder with like a singular like stud connection and it wasn't the best. So I kind of upgraded it and made it look a lot nicer and it can kind of sit a little neater on his shoulder and it actually is a lot more of a firm grip. Also, you kind of see a little bit of that kind of combine port coming through a little more, and it's a little more unsightly on him, but I kind of changed the colors a little bit to make it blend in at least a little bit. Alright, so for Wild Rider's vehicle mode, I made it this kind of armored tank thing, and this vehicle has like, I didn't base this off anything, this is a fully custom kind of design. When I originally designed it, it didn't actually have any proper design. It was just a tank tread with like kibble around it. But now I actually designed it to look more like a proper tank. Like as you can see, I put a proper windshield on it. And I have some ladders and stuff for people to climb up and into it. And I put this giant turret on the top, which can go up and down. It can't pivot, but go up and down. And actually my original design, for some reason, I just strapped this to the side for no reason. So yeah, it looks kind of weird. Also, you can see this like little peg here, which you can take the little flamethrower piece from Wild Rider's robot mode and just peg on the side. Doesn't look the best, but it's an option. I simplified the front a little bit. Originally there was a bunch of like spikes and stuff on the front, which kind of simplified to just two little spikes. And I have the second spike up top. I just like to think this is like more of like a kind of spare that you can like take off and put up here if either of these break. And as you can see, there's this little kickstand, and I use this because there's a couple extra things on this side, so it kind of leans a little bit when you put it on the table. So I have that to kind of hold it up straight. And yeah, the tread going through the middle is probably the coolest part about it, and it looks pretty cool when rolling. This table is a little flat, so it doesn't really grip very well, and I don't think these wheels are very loose, so and on the back you can see this kind of like little danger container. There's not much in it. I just put some little like transparent pieces in it. And I like to think that this is like, you could put like grenades or bombs or stuff in there. I feel like this kind of design in general is almost very reminiscent of like some of the rejected like Russian Vietnam tanks that like you see and like they just look atrocious and like they just destroy everything. Altogether, I'm really proud of how all these guys turned out, and I'm much more proud after I upgraded them a little bit just to be a little more to my liking. And if I had to put these guys somewhere in like the movie timeline, like where they would exist, I would say probably in between the second and third movie. So after the story of them is that after the second movie, Megatron forms a powerful team of Decepticons, but unfortunately they all get killed off by the third movie. Without further ado, let's just get into the combine mode and stop stalling. Okay, so in my original video, I did drag strip as an example for the legs, but this time I will do Wild Rider instead of drag strip, and the transformation is basically the same. So first thing you're going to want to do is remove his missile launcher and save it for later. Next, you're going to want to spin his head around like this. Next, you're going to want to flip him upside down. Now that we have him upside down, we can bring his legs down like this. Next, we're going to want to flip his feet around and then click them together. Fold his knees back like this so they kind of sit in place neatly. And then fold his arms back like this. Also fold this kind of down and out of the way so it doesn't stick out. And finally, flip up the knee joint, and here we have the complete leg.
Tomorrow.
Drag strip transform is about the same. The only difference is that you remove his swords before you transform. Alright, now time to transform Motormaster. So first what you're going to want to do is remove his gun and save this for later. Rotate his head down like this so it's kind of facing upward. Come to his shoulder vents here and fold them in like this so it kind of widens it a little bit. And then take his shoulders and pivot here and rotate back. And then you're going to want to pull this up and out of the way and fold his arms inward. Rotate these outward. Fold his hands in, click them together, and then fold down the body. Now coming down here to the legs, pull them out, fold them in, but we're not going to leave them like that. We're actually going to rotate them like this. So that's the shape of the leg. And then we fold his feet around and out like this. Then we fold the head down a little bit and the flag up a little bit and out to the side. And here we have the torso ready. Now for the hands, instead of having two little characters that I don't really care about, I decided to just have two extra hand pieces that just get added on afterwards because I kind of prefer it for the better look. So first what you're going to want to do is take his little gun off. Next you're going to want to pull his head up, rotate it around, fold it down like this, and then line it up to fold down along the body like so. You're going to want to fold both of his arms out, back, and down like so. Do that to both sides. For the legs, we're going to want to rotate his right leg, our left, and rotate him like so. Then the feet also get rotated to face back and then folded down like this. And then we take the extra hand piece for him and we just peg it into the feet like this. And then we just pull these bits out to reveal the hand. And here we have the right arm done. Now for the left arm, and Dead End's transformation is about the same, just mirrored. So first we're going to want to take his head, fold it up, rotate it around and back instead of forward. And then his little kind of shoulder blade pieces get folded up like this. You rotate his left, our right, and then his arms get folded up. You position the fingers accordingly, and then you fold down like this. Do the same on the other side, like so. Next, you're going to want to take your coordinating hand, fold the feet flat like this, and then angle them toward each other. And then connect the coordinating hand to the inside like this, and rotate. And here we have the left arm done. Alright, now time to combine the legs. And as you can see, it's a pretty simple process. Just the pins go into the pinholes. And it's pretty satisfying just to watch them click together. And it's a lot less of a struggle than my original design. It also holds together a lot better and is a lot less painful to try and pull apart. Alright, now time to attach the arms, and they attach the exact same as they did, just one ball joint. And it does make it really heavy, so... And he is still kind of very top heavy, and it's kind of hard to deal with. So there we have the arms connected. Also, we can take the missile launcher and just kind of connect it down here by the shoulder, like this. And then coming to the back, we could take Dragstrip's swords and just plug them into his back like this. And now finally for the guns. So first, what you're going to want to do is take the two guns, connect them together like this, and fold this little piece out on the hand. Connect that on there like this. Fold the thumb underneath like this. Then put this, the thumb, or this is the pinky, this is the thumb. And now he can hold the gun. And here he is in all his glory, the mighty Menasor. And while he might still be very clunky, he's most certainly less clunky than he was when I first designed him. And a lot of the design choices that I made to fix him, I am very proud of, and I'm glad that I came back to redo him. Some of the biggest things you'll notice about him will have to be his I completely changed his legs a little bit. As you can see, I added an entire extra knee joint and also completely slimmed the legs down because originally they stuck all the way out instead of being folded down like that. So it did kind of make him look very wide and weird looking. And when I designed him, I wanted him to be like a tall, kind of slim, slender design. And I feel like I didn't perfectly capture it when I first designed him, but I feel like I kind of got that design a little better with this new design. And another big change that I did was that I actually gave him proper hands, and he can also now hold his actual weapon, which I'm very appreciative of, which I am very glad that I did that, so he can now hold his gun, because originally his gun actually just kind of plugged up on his shoulder and looked stupid. And I also like the kind of new claw looking hand I gave him. Looks pretty cool. And probably the most unique change that I've done is that I changed his head. As you can see, it's a lot more detailed. Because originally his head was just like a little red ball in the middle of just a couple pieces. But now I actually have him like with actual teeth and like actual eyelid and like socket, and like I also gave him proper horns because Menasor is supposed to have horns. Now if you look at it closely, you can actually see that his teeth are going into his eye, but I honestly didn't mind it. I like to imagine that it's almost like the teeth go up to protect his eye because his eye is kind of exposed. So with a lot of the characters, with all their extra accessories, I often prefer to just keep them off, like this little missile launcher thing here. I prefer to keep it off, and like the flag thing, I also prefer to keep that off. But besides that, I do really enjoy the way I managed to make him look, and this is what I preferred. This is what I wanted him to look like when I first designed him, but never really properly captured that full Menasor essence. And while it isn't fully original to the cartoon, I am still very proud of the way he looks. Bringing in Transformers Legacy Menasor, you kind of see like what he's based off of, kind of. And you can kind of see like how kind of inaccurate he is, because you can see that Dragstrip becomes the arm. And if you remember, Dragstrip is down here on the leg, which is not really accurate. That is something that kind of always bothered me, but since I've gotten so used to calling this Breakdown and this Dragstrip, and their designs and personalities have just become like so attached to me, and like my personal way of viewing them, that I've kind of just decided to leave it like that. And to be honest, the live action movies aren't always perfect to the cartoons, and so I honestly don't really mind the fact that the combined mode is inconsistent. And so one thing with the original Menasor is that Motormaster does make the arms and legs mostly, and the cars kind of just become mostly armor on the outside. Especially if you look at the original cartoon, like you can see like the cars aren't actually the arms. It's kind of more like on top of the arms. But with my version of Menasor, the characters do actually become the actual arms and legs. And I feel like mine is a very good representation of what he would look like in live action form. And I am very proud of the way he looks. I'm not a really big fan of how structurally not sound he is, and especially comparing him to this guy, which is an absolute brick. This guy will not fall apart for anything. Like nothing's happening to this guy, but this guy, you slightly move him too fast, he's gonna fall over, and that's kind of something you can't really avoid with Lego in general, because a lot of their pieces are just you gotta realize it's brittle plastic and it's gonna start wearing down and breaking eventually. So there's not really much I could do to prevent this guy from being flimsy. Like, if I really wanted him to not be flimsy, I would have to go back and completely redesign them all. And I just can't, I can't really do that, because the characters I've made I've just grown so attached to, because although they are based off of characters and they're not fully my original characters, they are like original versions of the characters that I've grown very attached to. So I feel like me changing it would be not very good of me. Bringing in an actual official Lego Transformer as an example. So here is Lego Optimus Prime, and he's very similar size to my custom Menasor, but even Lego's official Transformers, they're still clunky. I mean, just look at his arms. Like, they don't hold up. Matter of fact, just watch this. Like, this guy is probably like he is a little more sturdy, like he could stand up a bit better, but his arms are like flimsy as heck. Like this one, like his arms are still kind of flimsy and they do fall a little bit, but like they're a little less because I have like all the joints are doubled up. With this Optimus, and this like my least favorite part about it is that they use these little ratchet pieces. It's kind of little ratchet joints, and they are good on small figures, but when the figures get bigger, it really doesn't work. And also the way they connect, I don't know if you can see this, but the way they connect it on the inside, you can see this is how the arm connects, just these two little pins. Besides that, it could just pivot, because he does transform, which is probably the coolest thing. I'm probably going to show this guy off soon, by the way, if you want to see that. He's a set that's existed for well over a few years now, but they're going to be releasing a Bumblebee to go along with him soon. So I might show this guy off before then. So yeah. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like and subscribe. And make sure to go check out my community tab, because I post there occasionally as well. And for my next video, I might recreate another showcase video talking about some of my actual original characters. And because it's been a while since I've talked about my own characters, and I have a lot to talk about with my own characters. But until next time, bye-bye. Gas mask almost.